Welcome to Rucks, Mauls and Overballs. That's right, it's the fans' favourite rugby podcast, hosted by the fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts, back with some more rugby conversation and rugby analysis and all things rugby. It's me, Dave, joined as ever by Rory. Rory, say hello to the listener.
Hello, listeners. Hello, David.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. I started thinking we probably should come up with a new cadence for the introduction to these episodes because it's the same every week, isn't it? We need to start, throwing a curveball out there every now and then because it's we don't want to be predictable, Rory. We're not a predictable pod. We like to roll with the punches. We need to maybe next week we'll throw something new out there. Maybe I'll change up my words or something exciting like that.
Well, that's something to look forward to, listener. Make sure you tune in next week.
Bumper numbers next week, I can tell you now for free. But yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Rory. Any highlights for me to draw on? Nothing extra special, just the continued battles of, being a father to a baby who, all things come with having a baby. That's a main focus. And at the same time, trying to get a house ready to sell. So lots of really boring, busy stuff and not very exciting at all to really go through. How about yourself, Rory? I'm guessing first rugbyless weekend for yourself for a while?
Yeah, no game this weekend. And obviously no game forthcoming until next season. A little lost with what to do my weekends, David. Obviously, you have to do boyfriend duties and all those kind of things, and really my weekends are freed up. So that's all I can really plan to do.
So you've now lost your excuse of getting out of those boyfriend duties that you once, I'm sure, really reluctantly avoided in the past.
I thoroughly enjoy my boyfriend duties, and I have no qualms with spending my Saturdays doing activities and being outside when there's games on the telly that I could be watching.
Absolutely.
So I'm towing the party line on that one.
Correct answer, Rory. That is definitely always the right answer to that scenario. But, next season's going to come thick and fast, Rory. So make sure to, make the most of your free time. Make the most
Not fast enough. I mean, no, you're right. I've got lots of time to enjoy.
Absolutely. Well, this week, Rory, we got a lot of news to cover in the rugby world. We got 5 games in the Gallagher Prem to cover, and we've got another round coming thick and fast. So rather than us dilly-dallying around the delicate subject of balancing being an overly, invested rugby fan with, the duties of carrying a relationship or being a parent, let's talk about rugby.
Let's do it.
Let's
just get into it.
This podcast is about rugby. It's not about the other stuff. So news-wise, I think the first thing I want to start off with, and it's a two-pronged attack for you, Rory. It is the rumour / kind of confirmed noising coming out of various unions, being Welsh Rugby Union, the Irish Rugby Union, and the Scottish Rugby Union, sounding out possibilities of having a club to partake in PWR, which is the domestic league for women's rugby in England. Second prong to this is also the noise of Ealing Trailfinders, the team that keeps going undefeated in champ rugby, and kind of the naysayers around promotion and relegation arguing, in many cases quite rightly, that they should have been a Prem club already, and we've covered reasons why. But there's talk of them trying to get into the URC.
Yeah.
So, Rory, what do you make of these developments? Because it could have some significant ramifications, implications for the future of rugby in our great nation.
Yeah. So I think if you separate them out from the women's rugby perspective, I think it's a really good move. For the purposes of improving the prospects of the international women's teams in Wales, Scotland and Ireland, having a pro team or 2 pro teams, whatever it ends up being, in each of those nations that women can aspire to play for, or current internationals in the PWR can go and play for, or women playing in the Celtic Challenge can move up to and play into, offers them significant opportunities and will vastly improve the prospects of the international nation. It will feed up and improve the entire level of British and Irish women's rugby, which is massively important. And I think this is a good first step, and it will improve the PWR. There are obviously going to be logistical challenges, there are going to be financial challenges, but on the face of it, I think really, really good move. Dealing into the URC, this feels more cynical, spiteful. I think it's Ealing trying to engineer an opportunity to play at the top level, which I understand why they want to. I do understand why they're after that opportunity. I think for the URC, it's a more cynical move to try and breach into the English rugby market, which obviously the URC doesn't really have a handle on, apart from expat fans of URC clubs. Ealing are financially incredibly well backed, but if I talk to my old man who's been in and around rugby in the southeast for a very long time, once upon a time Ealing were a park rugby team. They're just this is a club that's had a lot of money pumped into it, and it's got some very impressive facilities around it in terms of obviously linked to Brunel University. They've got wider athletics facilities and other sporting facilities that they commercialise. But Ealing itself does not possess an enormous fan base that is likely to fill out a stadium week on week.
No.
Obviously the main reason they can't get to the Prem is they don't have a 10,000 seat stadium or steps towards getting one. So maybe they could pull together a team that could compete in the URC, but is there a wider value in it? I don't know. What I do think is interesting with both these moves combined is this is all looking a lot like all the unions across the UK and Ireland starting to coordinate their clubs, or looking to coordinate their clubs, pushing for clubs into what looks a lot more like British and Irish leagues, which is something that's been mooted for some time and could end up being the way forward for all the teams involved. I know it's not in the current trajectory, the current plans for any of them, but is officially, but might end up being the best ultimate situation all round.
Well, if you look at it on the face of it, and you were to take into consideration the Prem is now a closed shop, it is what it is. URC is a closed shop. So something in the past that may have got in the way of a British and Irish league is, like, God forbid Leinster was to ever be relegated, for example. That just wouldn't be tolerable from kind of an IRFU perspective. And we know the noise coming out of the Prem is they aspire to have 20 teams in the Prem. It could that well be that they're looking at inviting over the Irish provinces, the Welsh regions, the Scottish regions. That would bring us up to that 20 number quite quickly. And it would appeal to them, the fact that the Prem no longer has relegation. It's now this franchise model. There's a bit more certainty around it, and it may be part of the reason why this noise is starting to happen, because the Prem's now no longer this shut door. On the Ealing Trailfinders thing, I still think, if we're not going down that route, I still have great reservations about the practicalities of that. So imagine Ealing Trailfinders go to the URC and then they finish in a Champions Cup position. That means we could end up with 9 English clubs in the Champions Cup. I can't see other nations liking that. And I don't see the Prem signing up saying, oh, okay, if Ealing finish 3rd in the URC, that means we'll have 1 less club just because another English club's qualified through another route. So there's technicalities that I think would be huge stumbling blocks to agreeing to Ealing playing in a competition that is sanctioned outside of England. It's the same reason London Irish, I don't see that happening either.
Yeah. Ealing's still set under the auspices of the RFU.
Yeah.
Now, are the RFU going to sanction having to manage a relationship with a whole entire league for the purposes of having access to players at Ealing? Because, presumably Ealing would have a number of English qualified players in them, even if they were in the URC. And the RFU would presumably want the opportunity to select them for the national team. But they wouldn't have the same agreement they have with Prem clubs to access to them. So it would madden an already overcomplicated structure.
Yeah, but on the flip side, if then the RFU are seeing to being open-minded and then inviting SRU, IRFU clubs into the PWR, on one hand, can you be taking from these unions, and then the other hand being like, actually, no, we'll happily have you play in our competitions, but no, you can't have anyone from You can't have anyone from England playing in yours. Sorry. There is a risk that doing one paves the way for the other, but maybe that is deliberate, like you say, going in the direction of this British and Irish League. Who knows? It could happen.
Look, we know that there's a lot of US money and a lot of US interest being poured into English rugby in particular at the moment. We've seen news in Cornwall.
Yeah.
who have been who are the first champ club to fall to the American colonizers. Exeter have ratified the deal with Black Knight Group to look at taking over.
So on that slightly, I did read in that it did seem like slightly the wording from Tony Rowe was to kind of dampen a little bit the ambition, because he kind of suggested that, there isn't actually any offer on paper saying, here's my money. It was more of a register of interest they're voting on to proceed with the negotiations. So it kind of feels like, hopefully it does still materialise, but the way I read it, it sounds like, there isn't actually money on the table yet. It's just an expression of interest.
Yeah, so they've ratified, Exeter Chief members have ratified the principle of Black Knight Group being able to buy Exeter Chief. Black Knight Group have expressed a statement of intent to purchase it, but they haven't officially begun the process of doing it. I think, in my sort of limited knowledge of these mechanisms, this is all sort of semantics, really, as much as anything. It means Black Knight Group at the moment aren't legally bound to proceed with the purchase of Exeter Chiefs, despite getting the get-go from the Chiefs members to do so.
Yeah.
But to all intents and purposes, that is still the direction of travel. So,
yeah, absolutely. I wonder, because I think a lot of people were expecting that post that EGM, that would be like, and hello, these are our new owners. It's actually, no, hello, you're now allowing us to talk to these people who are interested in buying the organisation. So I think that's the distinction we didn't quite have at that point before we knew about this. I'd also say, because I know Rob Baxter's said that his ability to recruit next season is kind of hinged on this a little bit. I don't whether there'll be enough time from when I think this deal could be completed to him being able to recruit maybe who he wants to for next season. Probably won't be, because that window's probably already passed, seeing all the business that's happened already this year. But it's interesting to know that's what they're talking about. And on the Cornish Pirates one, it's really interesting that there is very little information out there about the organisation that are purchasing them. The only thing I can figure out is that they're being bought by someone based in Pittsburgh, and obviously Pittsburgh Pirates are a thing, Cornish Pirates are a thing. Maybe there's a big wishful thinking brand-wise, which could be potentially really interesting.
I think with the Cornish one, I take this as it's sort of like the difference between, if you're ever in this one, it's sort of like the difference between private equity and venture capital, in that Prem are more like private equity opportunities in the sense of you're more certain, you're not guaranteed, but you're more certain to see a return on the investment eventually. Being the first to secure the ownership of a champ side is more like venture capital in the sense of, for a relatively small sum of money, which in what has been released about these people, this is not a huge sum of money in the grand scheme of things that they're able to invest in. They can put the wheels in motion to potentially put Cornish Pirates on a course to become part of whatever the future Prem looks like, without a huge outlay and with minimal risk.
It's more of a speculate to accumulate type of
approach. It's a little bit of that. But it does seem like they are the first dominant.
Bedford Blues obviously being nicely located to the newest Universal Studios being built in the area, and whether that could draw a significant American market to the Bedford Blues area, perhaps.
Quite possibly. I mean, they were formerly owned by Frank Warren, I think it was, in the 90s, when they had the likes of Martin Afire playing there. So they're not unused to new and different ownerships at Bedford, although they didn't eventually work out in the way that they hoped. I think if you tie a lot of these threads together, particularly with the American interest and maybe the steps towards a British and Irish league, which is, I would suspect the overall ambitions of these groups coming into the Prem are beyond just the English rugby market. I would suspect they're more interested in the UK and Irish rugby markets.
Yeah,
on the whole.
I very much look forward to tuning in to Ruxmall's Overball Series 22 and seeing what sort of rugby we're talking about at that stage, because I have a feeling it's going to be very different to what we're talking about today.
Look, let's take what that we know they're taking inspiration from. Obviously, they're taking a lot of inspiration from American franchises, particularly the NFL. The NFL has 32 teams across 2 conferences, across which are each split into 4 divisions.
Yeah.
Now, you're telling me you could not have a sustainable ecosystem of 32 rugby teams across the UK and Ireland?
Not immediately.
Not immediately, but not never.
No, well, with rugby, there is always a slight distinction of you have your southwest teams, you have your teams in the north, you have your teams in the East Midlands, you have your London teams. That's always existed.
They sound like divisions.
Exactly, and then obviously Ireland, Wales, Scotland, they could all have their own divisions.
You got your London division. You've got, let's say you got Wasps back in the southeast.
Yeah,
London Irish.
Yeah,
Quins and Saracens. I'm still not counting Ealing just because I decided not to. You might have your Midlands conference of East Midlands conference or something like Leicester, Northampton, Nottingham,
Worcester,
Bedford, or maybe Worcester. Worcester might be, or maybe there's a West Midlands conference with Birmingham, Moseley, Coventry, Worcester, Gloucester.
Yeah, and then you
Southwest, Exeter, Cornish Pirates, Bath, Bristol.
Yeah, it's on paper. It all kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
I'm not saying it's definitely the way they should go, but I think there's a conversation to be had.
And once again, we are free to be consultants. Our fee is very reasonable. We are more than happy to help map this out.
And we are visionaries.
And we will deliver. But it's a very interesting time. And obviously all this stuff is quite far in the future, so we'll never be held accountable for these views. But we like to hypothesize. Back firmly on terra firma of actually talking about news, Rory, I think another thing worth talking about, the Wales Summer Series squad was announced, and of our particular interest to us, a certain name that jumped out was a certain young Kane James, who seems to have escaped the clutches of English national call-ups. Is this one that's going to come back and bite us?
Yeah, immensely talented back rower, physically very gifted, very impressive for England under 20s over the last couple of seasons. A real standout. Probably a bit of push-pull in the sense of realising this is an incredibly competitive position in England, and you are up against the likes of Lissan El-Gaib, Henry Pollock.
Well, I was about to say that I feel like he suffered from being in the same age group as Henry Pollock, because I think if Henry Pollock wasn't around, Kane James would have been the exciting player coming through that age group.
Quite possibly, and the bits that we've seen him for Exeter Chiefs, he's starting to look he's really stepping up to the plate at that level. But he was, originally in Wales. Obviously, he's in the England 20s because he was based in Exeter now. Mm-hmm. He's made the decision to go back there, unlike Capitupolotu would be the other.
We assume.
We assume. Obviously, TBC, but I would assume if he was going to, I've seen the interviews with him where he said that his ambition is England and he's not in the Welsh squad, so let's assume still pursuing that direction. It's interesting. I'm no doubt that he is someone who has a pull to play for Wales and is a proud Welshman and is very keen to play for his nation. There may also have been that calculation of
it's a competitive market.
Where am I going to get the greatest opportunities at international level? It might be in Wales more so than in England. I'm sure he backs himself to be the best of the best. But there's always a lot of different facets to these decisions. But I think it's a good get for Wales. I think he's a really exciting young talent with a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. And let's be frank, the Welsh national team could do with any bit of extra talent it can find at the moment.
They could, although it's probably in the one position that they're pretty well stocked in as well. if you they've got a couple of decent players in his position, if we're being honest. But hey, I don't begrudge him. I fear that he's another one that might come back to bite us. But that's the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, our two nations are very closely linked, and we're going to have players that qualify for both. That's how we end up with Manny Fairoboso. That's how they end up with George North. That's how we end up with, countless other examples. And Kane James is just another one of those where he's, for whatever reason, quite rightly, followed his original nation, let's say. So good luck to him. It makes me wonder when we'll next see the next England pick that comes from Wales, because I think the last one I can think of was Underhill that we clawed back from Cardiff, I think, at one point.
Well, yeah. So Underhill was he was in the Gloucester Academy and then went to Cardiff Met, and then ended up playing for Ospreys for a short while.
It, yeah.
Don Brown, another one who was at Cardiff Met. Luke Northmore was at Cardiff Met, but they were there to play rugby for the university. So don't think any of those could have played for Wales unless they stayed long enough to get residency.
Okay. Well, it does always whet my appetite, though, because it means the other nations' squads is going to be announced soon. And there's nothing we love more than hypothesising about England squads, as you would have known if you listened to last week's episode, where we gave Steve Borthwick a hand in picking that squad for him, should he wish to use that advice. That's up to him. Other news-wise, I think we touched on everything. Any other news that you want to...
Well, I think a tip of the hat to a man retiring from the commentary box.
Absolutely.
One of the voices of rugby from my childhood up to now, really, Brian Moore.
Yeah.
Who is hanging up the microphone. Started commentating alongside the late great Bill McLaren. Maybe his best partnership with the other, unfortunately late and great Eddie Butler.
Yeah.
A man whose voice is sort of almost synonymous with Six Nations commentary, having been with the BBC covering that and covering women's rugby as well. One of the very early supporters of high-profile supporters from the men's game to women's rugby. I think he first got involved in 91 or 93. Very very early on to support the women's game. A commentator I thoroughly enjoy. I mean, him screaming into the microphone when Toby Flood kicked another ball away against Italy is a highlight of mine. Expressing the frustration of every England fan in that particular era of English rugby where we were so dreary.
Yeah, grey old days. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, look,
a worthy nod, a worthy tip of the hat.
Worthy nod. I think he's one of the great commentators. Obviously, was one of the great players. A great thinker of the game, an entertaining thinker of the game. Someone I'll miss listening to when it comes to next year's Six Nations.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think it'll be noticeable next year when we come to Six Nations, because I think people will just be used to hearing his voice. He's like one of those commentators that you don't realise until they're gone. That where's Brian Moore gone? But yeah, absolutely a good doff of the hat to Brian Moore, who's hanging up the microphone and hopefully can enjoy his rugby in whatever way he wishes to now. And once again, we are available for Six Nations commentary if you wish to employ us. We may not be as competent as Brian Moore, but we can certainly shout about things going really badly. We're good at that, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we can cover that off. But now, Rory, we need to dig in to Prem Rugby. We need to dig in to round 15, I believe that took place last weekend. And I think it's a rare treat, Rory, that we get to start on a Friday night game that involves your beloved Gloucester. And the first time in a long time, back-to-back wins, Rory. Go, just tell the listener your thoughts on this game. Gloucester versus Sale. I'm sure you are absolutely buzzing to be talking about this with me, because this is a rare treat for this season.
Yeah, literally it's the first time we've backed up a win in the league, and I'm utterly delighted by it. A really positive performance from the team in this one. Lots of endeavour, lots of positive play, lots of green shoots on what the boys are trying to do on the field. Very obviously still a bit ring rusty when it comes to this particular game plan. Lots of mistakes, lots of drop balls. Really contrived to lose the game that they never should have lost, because we were. If you take out the first 10 minutes of this game, Gloucester were on top the entire time. Sale never really put any pressure on us at all. Longstaff scores about 7 or 8 minutes in. Really, it was a nice try, actually. It effectively had the ball from kickoff until this try. And the defence from Gloucester was really good, really physical, puts under a lot of pressure. They didn't really get any change out of it. But it was the first time they found an edge. Ben Loader bites in on, I think, Ford as they came around the corner. It just found an edge for Roebuck to break up the right-hand channel steps inside, and Longstaff, very nice run round the back of him onto the outside on the right, takes the ball and goes into the corner. And it's a good try. But from then on, Gloucester sort of had the ball for the rest of the game, to be honest, and were well on top. But they weren't. I mean, what they are is extremely wasteful at the moment still.
Yeah.
So they're playing good rugby for the first time this season. In the last 2 weeks, they're genuinely playing attractive, exciting rugby, but with a basically complete inability to finish any opportunities. So from then on, so you had lots of balls to the floor. Alamano knocks the ball over literally on the try line. Fo got held up over the try line. And this is 20 minutes in, and Gloucester have just been all over for the next 10 minutes. They go on the attack again, and Seb Blake spills a not perfect pass to him, but probably should have taken it. He spills the ball. A Flatty picks it up and runs it in from 50 odd meters. And so 25 minutes in, having been well on top for probably 2/3 of that, Gloucester now find themselves 12-0 down. And I'm watching it going, how on earth are we losing this? We're battering them.
Yeah.
But they managed to sort of pick it up. I mean, Sarah have one other opportunity where they break down the left, and Will Joseph puts in a really good tackle, and George Barton works really hard to get the turnover right down in the corner. Thomas does maybe the best 50-22 I've ever seen. Box kicking over his shoulder from just beyond the halfway line into the perfect bit of grass.
That's lovely, wasn't it?
Couldn't get closer to the corner. I mean, he's good at getting 50-22s, Thomas. This was his best one yet. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And Gloucester managed to get held up over the line again. But then just before half-time, 37 minutes in, we win the penalty from a scrum about 15 metres out, and pass to Ben Loader, which we should have just done from the start, because he powers through Sam Dugdale, Rakita Massey-White, and whoever the fullback was at this point, his name just escapes me, Joe Carpenter. And just barrels over the line, just really, really powerful. I mean, Ben Loader, the last couple of weeks, is playing really well. You can see how motivated he is at the moment. He had a really stuttering season with injury.
Yeah. It does make you wonder what he could have done if he had a full season. Because every time I've watched him, certainly in the last 2 games, he's been very, very impressive.
Yeah, he's a different level of quality to what we've had out wide by and large. He's sort of like Lee Thorley, but with a much more well-rounded game. He was a real, and he was a difference maker in this. He got turnovers, he won high balls. By and large, his defence was very good, save for the first try where he bit in. He's the last couple of weeks, he's really, really hit the ground running. Charlie Atkinson nearly goes over at half-time, and at half-time I'm just thinking, I don't know how we're losing this. 7-12 down at half-time, I'm like, I don't know how we're losing this. We are genuinely battering them. Some players who've really flattered us this season, like Ben Loader, like Venter, by some distance, his best game of the season. Up to now he
started okay, but he kind of disappeared. I don't know if maybe he might have been one of the ones on the injury list, but
yeah, he was on the injury list, but it was almost starting to look like he wasn't quite, which you shouldn't really think of a South African flanker who was doing well in South Africa, but he almost looked a bit lightweight for the league. He just wasn't having an impact.
He is small by back row standards, to be fair.
He is small. But in this game, he was really powerful. He carried really well, hit the breakdown really hard. Unfortunately, we lost Thomas just after half-time, looking like either a collarbone or an ACJ. Hopefully it's not the end of his season.
No.
But it looked a painful one. Absolute demolishing at scrum time.
Yeah,
once again,
that was school. That was what's the word? It was child's play. That was at times.
Our scrum is starting to look really, really strong. Val and Afo.
It was against the Sale front row, all of which were under 21. So a little bit of stuff. Hooker, who's been playing at the Prem level for a few weeks now. So very well done, Gloucester front row and scrum. But it wasn't Sale's main starting scrum. Just
No,
to
I understand, but Afo's about the same age as their props.
well, yeah, Afo's the same age group as Apoka Vajura, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so yeah, you're right. But you also remember that we battered the Exeter scrum last week as well, and they aren't kids.
No, we'll talk about Exeter soon.
Yeah. So and you can only play what's in front of you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they
absolutely.
brought on Onosanya and Jimmy Harper, who've got a bit more experience, and they went backwards as well. So the point being though that the Gloucester set piece, all of a sudden, scrum and line out are both now looking very, very tight and powerful. Our line out maul's looking a lot better. So suddenly the Gloucester pack is looking a lot more formidable than it did
I think
3 or 4 weeks ago.
for me, it was once again where I saw a clip where it just showed Arthur Clarke stood amongst all the Gloucester players, and you realise how huge Arthur Clarke is. And I think having him back is both massive physically as a presence, but massive for the team. So I think the work he does in things like your line out maul, and just your set piece in general. I think having him back fit and firing is probably a big part of why things are starting to turn around as well. Because he had a great game as well.
He was really good.
He's so good in the loose as well. I really rate Arthur Clarke.
Yeah, he's got really good hands. He's surprisingly mobile and almost agile. I mean, he's not quite agile because he's 6'9" and probably 130 kilos or something. But he's sort of surprisingly agile. And obviously with Alemano next to him, who's
slightly less surprisingly agile.
Less surprisingly agile. Alemano's a very, very solid second row. And then if you look at the players we've got coming through, Danny Ite, 6'8", 6'9", similar sort of build to Arthur Clarke. John O'Balding, 6'10", coming through. We've got some big lumps at lock developing there. And we've got Joe Joyce and John Klein coming in.
Yeah.
Suddenly that stable looks very healthy. And Freddie Thomas as well, who I thought had a really good game at 6.
Yeah. Another one we lost to Wales.
Yeah. Well, I think he was always Welsh. I think he just came through the Hartpury College route. But we should pivot slightly to one of the backs, Charlie Atkinson.
I think the decision in dropping Ross Byrne and putting Charlie Atkinson in that 10 shirt has what's changed Gloucester's fortunes around most of all, because it is night and day. Yeah,
I mean, I saw an interview with Skivington where he addressed this, and he didn't throw Ross Byrne under the bus, but reading between the lines, you could see that it was basically, we dropped Ross and brought in Charlie, and everything sort of got a lot better. And he was phenomenal. I mean, Skivs described it as Jalibert-esque. That might be slightly over-egging the pudding. Yeah. But stylistically, there's something to be said for it.
He beat 13 defenders. We said that last week. You don't often beat 13 defenders, which is what Ben Loader did.
No,
he's gone and done
it. He genuinely was brilliant. He was brilliant last week. He's probably been, by and large, our best, most consistent player throughout the season, because he was obviously at fullback towards the start of the season. He was often our best player at fullback.
Yeah.
Scores the first try, another big scrum. George Barton, another one, had a very good game. Nearly went over with Ben Loader, then spun it wide, and it's a nice cut angle to get under the sticks. Arthur Clarke denied a phenomenal try by admittedly very obvious forward pass, but he runs it in from 40 metres. And you just think, just give it. It's such a nice try. Yeah. But unfortunately, Will Trellam did throw the ball forward, so it's probably fair enough. And at this point, Sale had just fallen apart. The scrum was gone. The line out had completely collapsed. And then, so we're 14-12 up, and there's a mistake in the backfield. A ball gets thrown down. I think Keelan Inglefield plays it off Jimmy Harper, thinking he was offside when he wasn't. And it gets hacked through ends up with a goal line dropout, which falls to George Ford, 55 metres out on the angle.
Yeah.
Who just slots the drop goal.
Yeah.
Or 73rd minute, something like that.
Yeah, very George Ford.
Very George Ford. And he's got it in his locker. And as soon as he got the ball, you look at it going,
oh, here we go.
No, he is going to slot this. And he does, because that's what George Ford does. He's, in a poor Sale side where to be honest, he's not been brilliant in this game by and large, still capable of pulling out moments like that where it's just, I don't think there's another fly half in the world that you could hang your hat on and say he would do that anywhere near as consistently as George Ford.
God, no one else, no other fly half's doing that.
There's not another one with the ability to just tick the scoreboard over.
No, most other fly-offs would be running that back or sending well, to be fair, George Ford does this a lot as well, but putting the old spiral bum up. But Ford also, his drop goal and his eye for that, world class.
Yeah. So at this point, obviously, my head's gone. I'm screaming at the telly. How are we effing losing this? We've been effing battering in the whole bloody game. Can't believe it. Can't believe that we're actually not going to win this game. Up steps, well, there's a few players who are worth mentioning. George Barton just about secures a very tough high ball off George Ford. Completely illegally cleared out, but it's fine. The referee cleared it, so it's fine. Seb Atkinson makes the half break. He had a very powerful game, so he didn't have spectacular moments of breaks and offloads and things, but very, very powerful carrying game up against one of the other players with ambitions of playing 12 for England. I thought Seb Atkinson was comfortably on top in the 12 battle.
Yeah.
Makes the half break, offloads to Max Llewellyn, who makes 60 metres up the pitch, and it's a really good break. Max Llewellyn doesn't look fast, but he's got a lot more toe than you'd think. Gets hauled down, and then upsets Charlie Atkinson again. Cuts a great line and runs it under the sticks to win it on about 77, 78 minutes.
It's just an absolute up and down evening for old Big Raw.
It's the roller coaster that only comes with support in the cherry and whites, my friend. It's admittedly it's a roller coaster with a lot more downs than it is ups. So but
more of a log flume.
Yeah, it's often a log flume. But on this occasion, no, very pleased to get the win. I thought I was really pleased with the performance. Loads to improve, loads to work on, but you can see kind of if this is the direction of travel, and admittedly it's only been a couple of weeks. And it's off the back of a bad season and some very, very bad performances. But the last 2 weeks, at the very least, gives me some optimism about the direction we're taking at the moment. So
finally,
delighted.
Some green shoots in Gloucester. We've been waiting. Yeah. We've been waiting all season. They're finally here, Rory.
No, absolutely. And from a Sale perspective, another really, really disappointing performance. And some players who, Tom Roebuck, really poor defensively against Ben Loader. The first try aside, absent for the rest of the game, hauled off on an hour. Marzi White, not really any impact there. George Ford, not particularly good.
I think that they were second best in each department, really.
Yeah, ultimately, that is the long and short of it. They were completely outmatched in this game, which is. It's worrying signs for Sale, because even when they've been poor in the past, you can always hang your hat on the fight and the grit and the determination. At the moment, they just look spent.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. They just do not look like they've. I think the season end can't come soon enough for them, and unfortunately, they've still got a few more games to play.
Tough games as well.
Yeah, they have got tough games. So 21-15 was it to Gloucester in the end?
21-15, yes.
So good 4 points for them. Next game. Just skip over the next game, yeah, Rory?
No, I think we should really dig into this one in minute detail, actually, David. I want to hear everything you've got to say about this one. This is the East Midlands derby, ladies and gentlemen. Our beloved David Morgan-Jones, obviously a passionate fan of the high-flying Northampton Saints, very confident in their ability to go and cause some mayhem to their great rivals, Leicester Tigers.
Yeah.
I think he thought they had them outmatched in almost every department. And no, David, I think you should give us the story of how this one panned out.
Well, for me, this game was a culmination and a hopefully decisive point on what has been a really rocky set of games since the Six Nations, where the Northampton Saints have not been playing well, but have still been getting wins. And I think what we saw in this game was that team not playing well and really not getting a win. And unfortunately, it was against the local rivals, Leicester Tigers, who I will say, before I get into anything, were magnificent. And they deserve every bit of credit they should get from this game. But I will also add to that, Northampton were the opposite of magnificent and really, really were disappointing. There's a number of elements that are hugely concerning, and I'm sure they will be hugely concerning to the coaching team. First and foremost, the set piece. Scrum time and line out, the Saints pack fell apart. And I know I've seen Saints fans saying it's because Tom Lockett pulled out last minute, but Chunyamunga came in. And if anything, Chunyamunga is a better line-out operator than Tom Lockett is. Perhaps has an impact to scrum time, but if I'm honest, I was a little bit nervous at scrum time going into that game, even with Lockett in the second row. Just the line out in general, I think we're like 58% success rate of the line out. It was an absolute travesty. But outside of that, I think it probably would be I think the observation I made, if you were to contrast how Northampton played and how Leicester played, Northampton seemed to be really lacking a bit of bite and a bit of grit. It all felt a bit passive. And we really struggled to impose ourselves in this game. And maybe it is the Welford Road crowd. But if you were to compare the tackles that Northampton were putting in and the carries Northampton were putting in to the Leicester counterparts, where every tackle seemed to be packed with bite and every run was vicious and everything was with a bit more oomph behind it, it was absolute night and day. And it made me start thinking, like, Northampton at the moment, really missing Tom Pearson, really missing Alex Coles, and really missing Curtis Langdon. Because I think those are the sorts of players we return to when we need to get a bit down and dirty. And unfortunately, we were not able to match the physicality Leicester brought on the day. And that's ultimately where the Saints game fell down, because we just were not able to live with them. And Leicester just didn't give Northampton any room to breathe, any room to execute anything of any sort. And just on that, Northampton is still continuing this pretty poor conversion rate of executing some of the backs moves, because it's still quite sloppy, ball hitting the floor when it shouldn't. So yeah, quite a frustrating and disappointing performance from Northampton Saints' perspective. I think the only couple of players that might come out of any sort of credit, maybe Kemeny, glimpses, but he got a yellow card. Freeman got 2 nice tries, but you know, it's all well and good getting 2 tries when you're getting beaten 40-odd points by your rivals. But this game is all about how just brilliant Leicester were, really. I don't think there's anything more to it than Leicester were. And I'm going to say it, of all the teams, and spoiler alert on the later on game, I think Leicester are the team to beat now.
They bullied you. They bullied you from minute one. Epitomised by the frankly magnificent George Martin. Finally returning to the regular lineup, and I'd forgotten, I think, because I haven't seen him play for well over a year, what a physical animal he is, both sides
defensively.
of the ball.
That you could see, there was a few carries where it was just like the players like, oh, they've just ran into a brick wall. Oh no, it's George Martin.
Yeah, immovable in defence, and his carrying with the ball. Obviously, he scores the try early on, really nicely set up by Chesham. But he carried a lot of ball in this game, and he got go forward every single time. He was just. There aren't really words. I think the only player I can think of, the only types of players I can think of that you could compare that performance to, Courtney Lawes at his best, Backy's Bota, you know, these types of like
physical enforcers
that are and physical enforcers in a very different sense to the likes of Van der Mescht, who was anonymous really in this game.
Yeah, he was completely neutralised. I'd say,
but yeah. Physical enforcers in everything they do, not just getting go forward with the ball. Obviously, that was part of it. Physical in the tackle, physical in the breakdown, physical at the maul.
It reminds me a little bit of like prime Schalke Burger. Like, it's just pure muscle, bulk. Everything you do is with just power at the heart of it. And I know Schalke Burger's not a lock, but the way George Martin plays, it reminded me a bit of prime Schalke Burger.
Do you know what? It just reminded me of how good he was against South Africa in the last World Cup.
Yeah.
And I suddenly started thinking, if he's fit again, and you've got a Toje and him in the row and a Chesham at 6, all of a sudden I'm less worried about how we match up physically to the South Africans. Chesham, again, phenomenal. He's been brilliant all season. He's looking more and more like an England captain in waiting.
Yeah, his leadership's fantastic, isn't it?
Joe Hayes, I loved Joe Hayes in this game. From minute one, he was out to hurt people. He was putting in some hits. He was niggly. It spilled over a bit with Craig Wright, who was a bit unfortunate to get binned alongside him, to be honest.
Yeah, well, he can't. The ref didn't have a choice, really, did he?
No, at that point you have to send them both off. But Joe was on it all day in this one, and he was loving. You could just tell he was absolutely loving getting under people's skins, and he put some hits in really early on in defence that just sort of set the tone for what he was about the whole day. Rafael and Lieberberger are a really good duo on the flanks, very classical duo on the flanks. I thought Morrow was excellent at 8. Mm-hmm. Again, there's something about Argentinian 8s in that mould, the way they get go forward. You think of the likes of, am I thinking of Leguizamon?
Yeah, Facundo Issa.
They just have this ability to get go forward, even if they don't necessarily look physically bigger than their opposite number. They just have this kind of determination to make ground. I thought it was excellent. Nicky Smith, excellent again, combative, great. Got a couple of really good turnovers. The whole Tigers pack, I mean, man for man, were streets ahead of everyone in the Saints pack. They, to a man, they were better than their opposite man and probably every other man in the Saints pack. Yeah. And that is where the game was won or lost. And
couldn't disagree.
And the physical disparity highlighted one of Saints' other big problems this season is their ill discipline, absolute inability to get onside, which just killed you all day because it just gave up field position constantly.
I think we got pinged 6 times in the first 10 minutes or something like that. You're not going to win a game doing that.
If Callum Chick is getting sent off on 7 minutes for repeat infringements, that is a bad tone to have set to your game. I think the Tigers pack is one of the best forward performances. We've got, if you take it against, we've eulogised a little bit about the Bath pack and what they do and what they've been capable of this season. But actually, the dynamism of the Tigers pack in this game was streets ahead of anything I've seen the Bath pack do.
Well, there's a reason Leicester are one of the teams that have beaten Bath quite comfortably this year.
and I think this starting lineup in particular, maybe with Ollie Cracknell in the mixture as well, but this lineup has all the hallmarks of being one that will go on to potentially lift the trophy at the end of the season, because I can't see who lives with a pack in this form. In the back line, I thought James O'Connor. This was the James O'Connor that I thought they were signing. I thought him and Orlando Bailey looked excellent together. Yeah, they just absolutely ran the show. I thought Freddie Stewart had one of his best games of the season. The pass for Ollie Hassel-Collins try on
he just loves playing against his TikTok mates, and that's fine.
Look, but in a battle against Furbank in that position where the ability to play make from deep at the moment looks like it's one of the key facets a fullback needs to have. Freddie Stewart showing his ability to do that with that pass over the top to Ollie Hassel-Collins would have done him no harm in making the England squad this summer. But Will Wand, really solid again. It's such an impressive season from him.
Yeah.
Hassel-Collins, finishes his try. I thought he was just good and just very good looking. I'm liking the new dude. He looks.
He's moved up. He's moved up Raw's Rolodex of romance in rugby.
He is. Yeah. He looked like a absolute movie star at the moment. So good on him for that. But star of the show in the backline for was Adam Radwan.
Hard to put down, isn't he?
Hard to put down, taking ball at first receiver and crashing it up, making ground. Again, a bit of an indictment against the Saints' defensive.
He's just a slippery little sausage, Rory. He's just a slippery little sausage.
He is bloody slippery and deceptively powerful.
Yeah.
And you didn't get any change out of him in defence, really.
No. He had one particular turnover, I think, where we got one. I think we had one of the rare moments where he actually put a move together and broke the line, but then he got back there and made a turnover tackle on. I can't remember who it was now. I've blocked most of the game out of my memory. It's probably also worth touching on, social media's favourite topic, which is Henry Pollock.
Well, I was getting to this one, David, because I think this is something to slightly linger on a little. There's two real moments that stand out for me. One more so than the other. The slightly smaller one is him tapping and going with the penalty, then kicking the ball away.
Oh,
when you're chasing the bonus point last play of the game.
Oh, don't get me started on that. I applaud the endeavour of tapping and going. I got the idea of that, but then why he kicked it, I have no idea.
When the bonus point's on the line, and it's looking like bonus points could have been really useful on this day.
Yes, that did annoy me, but not nearly as much as what I imagine the next thing you are going to raise was.
Well, let me paint a picture there, because you and I are of a similar size. You and I used to frequent the odd nightclub back in the day.
Yeah.
And I know that we've experienced this when a smaller, drunker, more angry man decides that they want to have a fight with you in a nightclub, and they decide to give you the push where they go backwards and you don't move.
Yeah. And
then they give it the old, come on then, and shake their head and give it the old come on to Harrow Liebenberg, I think it was on this occasion.
Yeah, wrong guy to pick on there, Henry.
Who's let's say half a foot taller than Pollock in this occasion. He looked half a foot taller because Henry Pollock looked like an angry little boy on a high street in Essex.
Yeah. I would normally support all the antics that he gets up to. I'm pro it, but I feel like that particular moment wasn't a good look for him, because it did look a bit like he's come on looking for a fight, and like you say, we've all seen that sort of body language where he's trying to goad them into doing something. I think that particular moment wasn't his finest, and it's not something that I think he should be trying to do more often. Maybe he just got caught up. Maybe he's sitting on the sidelines and seeing what we're all seeing, that Northampton Saints were not having any luck at any of the physical aspects of this game, and he's tried to come on to bring a bit of bite, but he's just done it in the wrong way. So
the look of amusement, the mixture of amusement and disdain on Harrow Liebenberg's face, watching him sort of hop about, trying to goad him into throwing a punch, will live long in my memory, I have to say. And look, I also am a fan of Henry Pollock. I'm not a naysayer to the antics. I'm not a naysayer to the personality. But you have to call it like you see it sometimes, and this particular event was embarrassing.
It was, and I don't think that painted him in a good light.
No.
So hopefully a bit less of that, a bit more, because I think actually when he came on and when he was actually playing rugby, you can tell he was trying to make a difference, and he had some nice moments, but obviously it still wasn't enough. But he like none of his rugby is in the highlights of this game now. It's all about how he's reacted to Freddie Stewart rubbing his hair on the floor and what he was doing to Harrow Liebenberg. I think the only nice thing that comes out of this game is like the post-match stuff, where you see it does confirm how rugby, the players, once the final whistle goes, they go back to being mates. You can carry on, but you can also be the worst of enemies when you're in a game, but you can kind of put it all to one side after the game. I still think that is one of the most redeeming factors about the sport we love.
Well, yeah, of course it is. But the vast majority of social media in particular hasn't seen that. What they have seen is the more embarrassing episodes of that, and it does paint him poorly.
I'm not going to sit here and defend that.
And I think what my sort of overriding thoughts of it are, and it's I think it's a blip in one game that went badly for Saints, and he'll get over it and he'll come back.
Oh, he doesn't give a monkeys about what that looks like, and that's probably why he's so good.
But also, I don't think it's not worth him kind of reflecting on, in sense of, am I bringing what I want to bring to the game if I do something like that? What am I actually having the impact for my team if I do something like that, or have I brought the wrong energy and I've detracted from?
I wouldn't be surprised if some of the teammates and some of the even coaching team would not have mentioned something about this week, or will not be mentioning it. One, I reckon there's teammates will be taking the mick out of him for it. I'm sure of that. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Dowson or Sam Vesti pull him aside and just kind of explain, look, that we get what you're trying to do, but that moment, that wasn't how that isn't what we needed from you at that moment. What we needed from him was more on the pitch rather than outside the referee's whistle. But I think we've dwelled on this awful game long enough, Rory.
Well, let's just to linger slightly. So it's Leicester Tigers 41. Northampton Saints 17. Northampton Saints coming away from this game with 0 points, nil, zip, nothing from the East Midlands derby for Northampton Saints.
Yeah.
And the title race is hotting up.
It sure is. Oh, it's so much so that I'm almost half tempted to say, do we just skip the next two games and go to the Sunday game? Because that's really made things really interesting. But that would be unfair on Bristol Saracens, Newcastle
let's
Quins.
be fair. This result tightens things up in the playoffs as well.
Yeah. So, Bristol Bears versus Saracens then, Rory. What did you make of this game?
Ominous, I think, is the word that comes to mind here. Possibly too little too late from Saracens, but ominous signs if you've got them. Let's say I wouldn't want to be the team going to Saracens this weekend, for example. Oh no, I am. We are the team that go to Saracens this weekend, for example. No, very, very ominous signs as to the mood that Saracens seem to be in come the business end of the season. And look, it may end up being too little too late to make a push for the playoffs. Obviously, we will be discussing the Exeter Bath game and the implications that will have for the playoff run-in. But between third and sixth, there is 10 points with 15 points to play for. It's tight, and Saracens, on the strength of this performance, look in the mood to make a push for it. Obviously starts off very well for Bristol. They score within the first couple of minutes. Fitzhardin. Bernard Jansen van Rensburg, who was fantastic in this game. He was absolutely brilliant. Again, gets the long ball over the line out, makes the half break. They play him a few more phases. He's back in again, makes another big carry. And then it's a pick and go, and Fitzhardin finishes over the line. His opposite number, though, Hartley, another really good game from him. He's coming to some really good form at this end of the season. He's the catalyst for Saracens getting their first penalty a few minutes later. Bristol have a good opportunity to go ahead. They cough up a line out on the 5-metre line, and I think the injuries, the destabilising nature of their selection at the moment, in fact, is starting to get on top of them at this end of the season, where their line out in particular looked shaky when it's been one of the most solid ones in the league all season. Missing Ogre now, obviously. Thacker's obviously a very good hooker, but there's just a lot of moving parts now that keep changing for Bears, and I think that's starting to put pay to things. The Saracens machine just sort of rumbled on from there. Tom Willis scores, very Saracens kind of score, win a penalty, line out maul, pick and go. Tom Willis scores. It's a blueprint the Saracens have been playing for a long time.
Yeah, a tale as old as time.
Yeah, a much less Saracen scoreline was the Hugh Tizard one a few minutes later. Noah Calori takes an amazing high ball off a Bracken box kick. It's a really amazing I mean, I suppose at this point of the season, I've been watching him enough I shouldn't continue to be impressed by his ability in the air, but I still am. The air, the gap between the bottom of his feet and the ground, David, is continuously surprising to me.
It is a surprisingly amazing skill. I think the only thing I'll say on Calori is I think this is a coaching thing more than him, is he gets so high, he doesn't need to worry about slapping the ball back. He just needs to focus on catching the ball because no one's getting as high as him.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is something that English wingers in particular need to go back to, because we obviously had a lot of success from the slapdown last season or last calendar year in international, and I think that was sort of adopted by a lot of people. Actually,
and most teams have figured it out now. You just field players where the ball drops, and then you've actually got a really good position yourself.
Yeah, so I think they have to go back to catch it, and I think Calori is more than capable of doing it, as he showed in the build-up to this try.
It's just you worry for his physical well-being, because as we've also seen in this game, that could lead to him falling quite heavily from quite a high.
Well, in fairness, anyone who collides midair with Calavetti or Ravuvu is going to come off second best. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, that's very true.
But yeah, so Tizard, he off the back of this, he makes a break and offloads it. Saracens play more phases, and Hugh Tizard's there again to finish it off through traffic. And this point, I think the dam doesn't break, but Bristol are shaking, and their discipline's quite poor. They do They do get one back. Thacker scores after about 25 minutes. Some really nice play from Bristol. They win a pen after there's more. They just keep tapping and going. They keep offloading. They win the pen, get to the corner, and then it's a really good line-out maul. We've talked about the Bristol line-out maul before. It's really efficient. It's very sort of it's an antithesis to the rest of their kind of play, but their line-out maul is incredibly strong. And Thacker finishes it off. But then that's where they go. Saracens go down the other end of the field, and Jegan scores it's off a line out. Fergus Burke, who's again he's coming to very good form. He's playing very well at the moment.
He's showing his toe quite a few times now, isn't he? He's finding gaps quite easily.
Yeah, he is. I think maybe the dry pitches maybe help him. I don't know, but he breaks through and Shagan finishes it off. Earl then scores a few minutes later. Very strange strike. It's going back and forth, but eventually Hartley makes the bust through.
Okay.
And Bennell finishes it off. Yeah, he was very good. And then Maroney scores a few minutes later. And it's a very breathless first half. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tries in the first half.
Was the Maroney try the one where Ellis Genge does the bullet out of the back pass offload? Kind of make the try.
Yes, I think it is. Yes,
that was one of those moments that's kind of it'll go unnoticed, but the fact Ellis Genge pulled that off, and it was a lovely little pass. Tip of the hat to you, Ellis.
Yeah, although I think overshadowed by Jamie George's offloads for Fergus Burke's try.
Yeah,
right before half time.
There was a few of these from front rowers this weekend, I'd say.
Yeah. But yeah, so the first half is incredible. Yeah, 8 tries, 21-34 at half time. And at that point, you're thinking, right, well, this is the best game of rugby I've ever watched. Yeah. This is phenomenal. Yeah. And then we don't get another try for over half an hour. And it's
the second half changed a bit, didn't it? It went a bit. It's cagey.
Yeah, I mean, first half I think was very defined by. I mean, the Bristol defence was really struggling. They were porous. But Charlie Bracken's speed of ball, I think, is what did it. The fact that Charlie Bracken was getting the ball off the base so quickly, and Fergus Burke was finding gaps with his running game, and Ollie Hart was cutting such good lines. That kind of 9, 10, 12 axis, it just shredded the Bristol defence. Just time and again, they just didn't know how to handle it. And Saracens were playing with genuine ambition and genuine abandon really with the ball, which is really good to see, because they've always been a team that never seemed to quite be performing to the level we know their players are capable of. They play a much more conservative style of rugby than they need to. But in the first half they really didn't, and they were excellent.
Well, you say
the second half
they've scored the most tries this season, so they
but most of those are just Kaluri against Sale.
Yes, to be fair, that is probably over 10% of that easily.
They scored. I think has he scored 10 against Sale?
Is it 10? Yeah, it must be. Yeah, because he scored 5 both times, hasn't he? When he's played them, so he scored 10 tries by himself against one team.
So let's slightly put an asterisk against that. But no, you're right. They've played more rugby this season, maybe, but they're sort of feast and famine. I think I found with Saracens this season, they either batter the team they're up against, 85 points against Sale last time out, or they don't look like they could score a try and walk them over the line.
They went through that month or two where we were they just did not look like a cohesive unit, and they were not. Yeah. It wasn't looking right. That doesn't look the case anymore. It definitely looks like they're firing on most cylinders, I'd say.
Yeah, no, right now they look absolutely on it. And for Bristol and Exeter above them, they know that they are breathing right down their neck. And in the second half, they did show the second half of their game. The other part of their game, their defence was absolutely monstrous. They, for half an hour, Bristol huffed and puffed and just couldn't make any headway through them. There was a lot of Bristol pressure in the red zone, but it took one of the best crossfield kicks I've seen this season from BJVR again.
Yeah.
To Vuvu to finally score a try.
Yeah.
But it took something really, really special for Bristol to score. And then it took something really, really special to finish it off. And unfortunately, it was special in a very different sense of the word. Tobias Elliott scoring just before the final whistle, because Harry Randall taps and goes on the 5 metre line. And then throws
the worst pass of the season.
Yeah. In football, they talk about you don't pass it square across the back because people will intercept it and just run through on goal.
Yeah, that's
This
why.
is sort of the equivalent of that.
Yeah.
A sort of a bloated 25-meter pass that wasn't going to get to Maroney anyway. That Tobias Elliott, I mean, eyes lit up, just cantered in to collect it and go under the posts.
I'm semi confident that if I was in that position, I would have had time to have got that intercept as well.
Genuinely, I think you and I would have been able to have reached that one. And we're not known for being great readers of the.
Certainly not in the 79th minute.
No, but I mean, yeah, it would have been harder to have missed it. I suppose, but
it's a bit of a dampener on the end of that game because obviously that took away the bonus point from Bristol, which could be vital. Because they would have been. Oh no, they were. No,
they were still. They've obviously got the one for tries, but they were after the second bonus point. But yeah, I mean, really poor from Harry Randall, really. And I know what he's trying to do, and it's obviously that's his job is to build tempo and to put speed in the game. But at that point, I think kicking for field position and playing off a line-out would have been the better call.
Well, in hindsight, for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, hindsight's 2020, but I think basically on your own goal line.
Yeah, that's absolutely. But the game ended 41-26 to Saracens. Comfortable win for them. They are breathing down the neck of 5th and 4th position, and as you said, that is becoming really, really interesting fight. The next game, Rory, is Newcastle Red Bulls against Harlequins. I will be brutally honest with you and the listener. I have not watched this game because there really wasn't much in it for me. I've seen the score. It's a bit of a cricket score. It doesn't look like it was much of a muchness. It was just a chance for Harlequins to have a bit of a procession, have a bit of fun, and they looked like they did.
It's not worth dwelling on. Quins, I mean, Red Bulls 17, Quins 76. Hugely disappointing from the Red Bulls. This was a game they really could have targeted to win. Sure. And actually, if they had done, they had an opportunity to get themselves off the foot of the table. But no, Quins absolutely battered them. There isn't really much to focus on here. I mean, the defence of the Red Bulls is pathetic. I mean, genuinely pathetic. And I say those words completely advisedly. Their frontline defence was pathetic. Bradley and Northmore in the Quins centres had an absolute field day. Josh Hodge, I'm afraid to say...
Back to his revolving doorways.
One of the worst defensive performances I can remember. So the less said about the Red Bulls in this one, the better. From a Quins perspective, a couple of nice moments. Jamie Benson, scoring a hat trick. He's obviously off to Ulster, I think, at the end of the season.
Maybe another one that's got away from England, maybe.
Possibly, but nice for him. Is it James Hobson? Will Hobson?
Will Hobson, you got there.
Will Hobson, the loose head, scoring a try, running it in from 25 metres. That was a nice moment for him.
We always love those moments.
Yeah, giving it the old swan dive under the sticks. And Jimmy Staples coming on at debut for hooker and scoring a try for Quins as well. So well done, all of those. But listener, we're not going to bother analysing this one in any great depth because, frankly, we've all got better things to do than worry about this game. It was pathetic.
Yeah, we said with Sale that I bet they're wishing the season be over. I imagine the entire Red Bull brand is hoping this season ends sooner rather than later because they would not want to be associated with what was put on that pitch, I imagine, because that can't be what they've invested in. But there is another game that very much requires attention, and that is Exeter Chiefs saving a Northampton Saints fans weekend by going away and showing that Bath Rugby are not all that. And I'm going to double down and be all smug here because this is what happens when you have a Bath team with a backline that is unable to perform with a fly half who's really not in form and they're not playing very good rugby and it's not very exciting and they're unable to string some stuff together like I've been saying for the last few weeks. And the second you get a team that figures out how to nullify the Bath pack, you beat them 35-12 and that's exactly what Exeter done. Start Kieran Donahue.
I can't really argue too much with your assessment of the Bath performance. They were poor in this one. Physically, by and large, dominated. A bit of a changed team, missing. I mean,
the thing I love about this is that every excuse that a Bath fan may have brought up about it being a European semi-final and they're tired, Exeter also had a European semi-final, so they would have been equally tired. So I know the only excuse I've seen come out of this is the fact it's the ref again. Cool, those refs really hate Bath, apparently.
Are they complaining about the ref?
Yes, that's what I've seen. I've seen,
Grant.
yeah, I know. They've said, it's hard to go and win at Sandy Park when you're playing 16. No, it's hard to go and win at Sandy Park when you are the second best team on the pitch, which you
by
well
distance.
And truly were, by a distance.
Pretty much across the board. I suspect they're referring to the Quinn Roux red card.
Yeah, I think they're probably annoyed at that because there was another head contact later in the game for Exeter Chiefs.
Camel Riddle.
We've got just a yellow, but I am inclined to agree with how the ref went through the protocols, went through the steps they need to go through. To me, it sounded reasonable, and it looks. So this is the problem with the way the laws are written. There is going to be an element of crossover between what's red and what's a 20-minute red and what's a yellow. Blurry lines maybe, but I think if you listen to how the ref explained how they went through the processes, he made the right decisions, I think, on those bases.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I could be persuaded that Quinn Roux's one was harsh to be a 20-minute red, but at the same time, he's got all the time in the world to get lower there. So I have limited sympathy with him. Campbell Riddle one, I think, is definitely a yellow. So yeah, I think you could probably argue the toss on the 20-minute red card between yellow and 20-minute red, but
that's also not the reason you lost the game.
It's not the reason they lost the game. The reason they lost the game is they lost the physical battle with Chiefs. This sort of bomb squad tactic, I think, it obviously has paid dividends for them a lot this season. But by the time they deployed it in this game, they were, I think, 18-5 down. By the time they brought on Beno Abanu, Kepitupolotu and Thomas Atoy. Charlie Ewell's already had to come on, so they've lost the impact of bringing Charlie Ewell's on. They bring Cam Redpath on for Will Butt. Well, no disrespect to Will Butt, who I think is a fine player, but Cam Redpath is above him in the pecking order at 12. Why are you not starting Cam Redpath?
Yeah.
They lost the physical battle. They lost the scrum up until the point they brought the Bath bums on. And by the time they were looking at turning things around at scrum time, they lost the ref. So they weren't really getting any change out of him at scrum time either, which I heard the frustration from, I think, Thomas Dutoy, that they weren't getting the penalties at scrum time. But by that time, the ref had already turned on them. And they were outperformed by, some really notable individuals. Lenny Kittal, phenomenal.
Can I put forward the most surprising world-class performance of the season?
I know who you're going to say, and you can, but just let me list off some of the other names so that we can really dwell on that one.
Okay.
I'm almost certain we're thinking of the same one. But Lenny Kittal, obviously scored his first try. He was a freight train at 12.
Oh, yeah, he was huge.
He was carried so hard. He was exactly the player that they thought they were signing, but obviously injuries sort of robbed them of. This reminded me why I like Lenny Kittal as a player.
Yeah.
He was superb. I thought Ross Vincent was excellent. The pullback for I want to say it was Paul Baron-Mampo's try. The pullback on the line behind him, where he's engaged 2 or 3 defenders because he's so quick. He's engaged all the defenders on him, and he pulls it back right on the line, creates all the space out wide for Paul Baron-Mampo. I thought he was fantastic. I thought Christ Schunzer had his best game for 2 or 3 seasons at 7. Just looked freed up at 7, I think.
He looked like the player who stormed onto the scene like 2-3 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, who's this guy?" And he's just kind of disappeared, and then there he is. He's back.
He's played a lot at lock, I think, and actually playing him at 7, I think you get more out of his athletic talent, but he just looks a bit more freed up to roam around the pitch, hit breakdowns, hit tackles, gets hands on the ball.
Yeah.
He just looked better there. So maybe he's just better off at back row than he is at second row.
Yeah.
Hooper, another great performance from him. Really impactful. He's one of the signs of the season. Daf Jenkins, shout out for the grubber kick.
Yeah.
He's been fantastic for Chiefs this season. He looks back to being the player that screamed Welsh captain when he first burst onto the scene. Zamboni, impressive again.
Yeah.
Maybe the sign of the season.
He's going to be in the conversation for sure.
Yeah. For difference of between fanfare and impact, Zamboni, I think, could be my sign of the season. There's only one man you can talk about, and actually on this occasion, and I say this as a former dictator of a nation designed to hail these players, but I'm actually going to hand over to David to describe the world-class performance of this last man.
Oh, it's just, it genuinely is the most unexpected, out of nowhere performance from an individual player that wasn't on my bingo card for this round, and it was Josh Yosefa Scott. He was everywhere. I do not know what was in his breakfast that morning, but he had a ridiculous amount of carries. He was tackling everything that moved. His offloading game and his passing game was pinpoint. I think for Len Ikitau, it was his offload that put Len Ikitau through for the try. Yeah. He'd done that a couple of times, and he was everywhere. He was an absolute menace. I really do not know where this has come from, because if you were to look at the stats for this season, he's right up there on my naughty list for forwards who've had the least impact in their carries. Yeah. This game alone has just get that, because it's shown what he's capable of, and I do not understand how he pulls that out when he's had, let's face it, a rather unremarkable season. Like there's no other moments of note that I could think back on this season that he's had in any other game. This game's full of 4, 5, 6 moments. Like he made a couple of line breaks. It's unreal how that performance has come from him.
Yeah,
from nowhere.
The offloads. I mean, obviously he scores a try as well,
and he scored a try.
The offload that he did 2 offloads of this game. One I think was to Chris Chunser, and one was to Stephen Varney. One was in the sort of very middle of the field, about halfway through the first half, where just sets a move off, but it just came out of nowhere. Everyone goes, "What on earth happened there?" And it was just a beautiful offload. But the second one, he effectively gets an intercept. I think the ball bounces off. I think it might be Ted Hill.
Yeah.
And he collects the ball loose in the air, makes the half break, and then throws the out the back offload to Varney, who sets Chiefs off the pitch. Now it doesn't end up in a try, so it effectively comes to naught in the end. But the way that he sets this move off in the red zone, setting the attack off down the field, it's just beautiful bit of play. And yeah, the pass, the no look pass to Len Ikitau to set him in for the try. It's a nice dummy line from Tom Hooper to get the ball to him in the first place. He runs the unders line. Tom Hooper runs the overs line. I think Vincent throws the pass to him. But then, you're the Bath defence on the goal line, and you've got a big tight head looking at you in the whites of your eyes, bearing down on your ball in hand. You're thinking, well, he's crashing this. He's trying for the double. And then out of nowhere, he throws a no-look pass perfectly to Len Ikitau to run it under the sticks. I could forgive the Bath defence for not seeing that coming.
Yeah, that one, I'll give you the pass on Bath, because no one was preparing for that on the training pitch. Seemingly, Exeter must have, because there's no way that's just happened naturally.
They've worked on that, surely.
Sure.
No, I mean, one of the best performances of the season.
Yeah.
One of the best individual performances of the season.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like, I really run out of words to describe how... I think even if this was, like, the best prop in the world, putting in this performance would still be waxing lyrical. But to come from someone who is kind of good Prem standard prop and kind of, goes about his business, very rarely a highlight player, to pull that off, it just makes it even more remarkable to me. So, like, this game, like, I'd love to keep putting the boot in on Bath and how poor they were. But for me...
Oh, no, let's do that.
Oh,
let's do that.
Well, let's do a bit of that then. For me, I think Exeter Chiefs basically figured out how you weaken Bath, and that's just you keep the ball on the pitch because Bath thrive off of set piece ball and controlling the tempo. If you force them having to play the ball, force them to keep the ball on the pitch, we all know their backline is not firing in any way, shape, or form, as shown in this game.
Let me name some Bath players I saw next to nothing of in this game. Joe Thockiner-Singer, Ollie Lawrence, Marie Arundel, Will Butt,
Tom de Glanville.
I saw nothing of them in this game, really, up until I noticed Henry Arundel left the massive dog head for Campbell Riddle's try towards the end. I've probably tried to temper some of your criticism over the last few weeks of Bath's tactics. But on this occasion, I have to completely concede the point that they did not try to play any rugby. They played a 10-man game at best in this one. And it was their undoing because they didn't get any change out of Chiefs up front. Obviously, Sam Underhill scores off a good line-out maul. It's a good finish from him. Frost scores off another line-out maul.
What are the chances? Line-out maul.
What are the chances? So for my notes, I'll read you my note for the Dan Frost try. Pit go, pen, line out maul, 10 metres up.
You could copy and paste that for most of their tries this season, if I'm honest.
And, the pick and go, constant pick and goes to the forwards. The reason why I was so effusive about the French teams that did that is what they were doing was creating space to then spin the ball out and let their backs express themselves.
Absolutely.
At what point are Bath going to bring that element into their gameplay?
So, Rory, I'm not going to get angry, but this is what I've been saying. If Bath has figured out, because, they've got the best 10 in the world in Finn Russell, that they could do that, just blimmin' well do that and be exciting for once. Because you might actually, entertain your fans for once. Because they've got the players to do it, like I've said. But they're not. They're choosing not to.
As I say, I have to concede the point to you, I think, at this point, because, the reality is they were rubbish in this game and Chiefs were deserved winners. And Bath have got Newcastle at home this weekend, which is a nice soft landing after this one. But they're then away at Bristol. That is not an easy game for them. And they've had a couple of ding-dongs in the last couple of seasons. And then they're at home against Tigers before the end of the season.
I have a horrible feeling that's going to decide second and third. I think.
Northampton are at home against Bristol this weekend, and that is not a sure thing. But I think injuries are probably going to put paid to Bristol's ambitions there. But they might not, and Northampton will have to bounce back from their performance. But Tigers have got Sale away. Well, the way Sale are playing, I think Tigers win that one pretty hands down. Then they've got Chiefs at home.
Tough one, but Leicester at home
Tough one, but Leicester at home.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they finish at the Rep. Now, if you say to the Tigers, home semi-final on the line, you've got to go to the Rec and perform. I know their away form isn't as strong as their home form. That would go for pretty much any team. I think, to be honest, not just on the strength of this weekend, but off the back of the last 3 or 4 weeks of Prem play, I now have to concede that I think Tigers would have the edge in that game.
Yeah, right now, Tigers are my favourites for the title, the way things are currently set. Because
they're the form team.
They're the form team. I think Northampton's injuries have come in the wrong positions at the wrong times. Shock, again. Bath, really, I think they're being exposed a little bit for being one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Exeter, I think, Exeter-Leicester could be an interesting matchup, but I just don't see that happening.
If Saracens are in this form and make the playoffs, big if at this point, but it's not outside the realms, and they're playing like this, I could see them giving both Bath and Northampton a very tough game, even away from home.
Yeah, it's a weird one where the two teams at the top seem to have lost their mojo a little bit, which is making the race to the end of the season a bit more interesting and, providing a bit of context for us to talk around, which, we don't need much fighting to do. But, this game is all about Exeter being phenomenal. And
yeah, they were great. They were absolutely great.
And really, putting the cat amongst the pigeons this week, let's say, by really closening up that top 4 altogether. And then with Saracens and Bristol and that result, top 6, it's tasty. And Who says you need relegation for a league to be interesting, hey?
Not me.
Not me. But so what we'll do, Rory, very quickly, we'll do our teams of the week. We'll do them very quickly because we are running short of time, and then we'll do our predictions for next weekend. Okay. So let's start off with our front rows. Your 1, 2, 3, Rory.
Barrel Ruskin, Jamie George,
okay,
Josh Josefa Scott.
Okay, I've got no issue with that. I've gone Nicky Smith, Jamie Blamire, Josh Josefa Scott. Maybe it's just because I was on the receiving end of that Leicester performance, and
it's not a bad shout. I went for Jamie George on the basis of the offload as much as anything. I thought Jamie Blamire was very good though. I probably would dig my heels in on Val just because he absolutely battered Ashra Poker-Fajor scrum time.
I'll give you Big Val. That's absolutely
I'll
fine.
give you Jamie Blamire.
Oh, look at us working together. Second row, I know it's not technically the right shirt numbers, but I've gone Ollie Chesham, Arthur Clark. I know they're both 5s, but
Ollie Chesham was 4, so you're okay. No, I think they're both still made a mistake, but I actually went Ollie Chesham, and I toyed between George Martin, but I actually, in the end, I did just land on Hugh Tizard. I think he had a really good game for Saracens.
He did have a good game, to be fair. I was going to say in the Saracens commentary, but I got distracted by Kalori. I think, Tizard he's quietly having a really good season.
Yeah, he is.
And reminding us of when he was at Harlequins and he was almost getting into like England squad conversation, and Saracens snapped up and he just kind of disappeared for a little while. Maybe a name to have on the back burner as maybe an option in the second row if we wanted to throw a real big curveball. Your back row, 6, 7, 8.
Liebenberg, Venter, Vincent.
Okay, so I've gone Liebenberg. I couldn't decide between Ben Earl or Fitzharding because I think both of those had huge games. I went Tom Willis at 8 just because Tom Willis does Tom Willis things.
Yeah.
I'll happily give you Vincent though.
Yeah, I just thought Vincent was excellent for Chiefs. I went Venter because it was by some distance his best performance of the season for Gloucester. But I suppose if you were forcing me to be remotely objective, I could concede Ben Earl.
Okay. I'll force you to be slightly subjective then in that case, and I'll take Ben Earl. Just because I gave you Val Ruskin.
Yeah.
Your 9.
Varney.
I'm in agreement. And I have a feeling we're going to be in agreement at 10 as well.
Charlie Atkinson.
It's very obvious and clear. Your centres, 10 and 12. 12 and 13, sorry.
12 was Len Ikitau.
Yep.
My 13... I thought Luke Northmore had a really good game for Quins, but he was a training match. So I actually went Will Wand.
So I couldn't decide between Will Wand and Henry Slade. I went Slade. I'll happily give Wand.
I think Will Wand was so effective there for Tigers.
Okay. Wingers. I was half tempted to go Freeman, but I know there's debates to say, Northampton Saints had a really bad game. He scored 2 tries. He finished them off.
He did score 2 tries, but the right wing for me was sewn up by Adam Radwan.
I was just trying not to do Adam Radwan, Ollie Hassel-Collins, because I think it's those 2.
He went Ben Loader on the left.
Fine. If it means it's not two Tigers, that's fine. And your fullback?
I went Stewart.
Okay, yeah, so I went Woodburn.
He was excellent for Chiefs.
He was
excellent.
Considering he's not normally a fullback as well.
I'll give you Woodburn so I don't have to force you to have too many Tigers players.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. Okay, that's our team of the week. And, they all played really well.
Well done all
involved. You can take that to the bank. Its monetary value isn't very high, though, so don't expect too much if you are listed in that team of the week. Right, moving on to round of 16, we'll quickly run through our predictions. And it starts off Friday night and under the lights at the Cinch Stadium at Franklin's Gardens. Northampton Saints against Bristol Bears. One team licking their wounds, the other team also licking its wounds. Who comes out on top here, Rory?
Yeah, I mean, 2 teams that are going to want to bounce back. Obviously, Bristol desperate to get themselves into the playoffs. But I just think injuries are going to put pay to them getting there this year. Saints, well, let's be frank, dreadful this week. Will have to have a response. I just don't think they can afford not to have a response this week. So I'm going to go with Saints 35, Bristol 22.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Northampton need a response because I think if there's not a response here, there's a very serious risk of the end of the season being a bit of a whimper because of the way the run-in's gone so far. We need a reaction. It needs to be kind of convincing. That's why I think it will be a 5-point win for Northampton Saints. If that doesn't happen, I think there's a very, very real risk that Northampton Saints will run out of steam and kind of from what has been a very good season domestically for Northampton Saints up to this point, could really start to tail off if we kind of back up a bad game with another bad game. So that's why I'm being confident in saying it's going to be a 5-point victory. Similar ballpark, 35-22 feels about right to me because I do see Bristol still scoring a few tries. Next game, Bath against Newcastle. This genuinely, I think, could be a cricket score, but
this could be really quite ugly
with an opening maiden maybe partnership.
I'm going to go. Yeah, it's going to be a king pair, I think, for someone. Yeah. 65-0.
Yeah, if that, could be higher because Bath will want a reaction. They're going to want to do. I see them sending out their big guns to show the rest of the league that they're not going to rotate anymore. And I don't think Newcastle have got it in them to respond at this point. It feels like the players have decided, I'm not staying for next season. I'm done. No one's picked me up.
Or I've either got a contract secured or I'm no longer a professional rugby player.
I think that's basically what we're seeing now. So get Henry Arundel in your fantasy teams, guys, because he can get 5 or 6 here. Next game, Harlequins against Exeter Chiefs at the Allianz.
Quins do perform big game. Or the summer kickoff. But I think this might look a little bit more like big game at Christmas where Bristol went down and hammered them. I know Quinn's just got a very big morale boosting win at Newcastle at the weekend, but I think this is a different beast for them. I don't think their pack can compete. I think Petty might be injured, which is a big loss for them in trying to combat this pack. Treadwell's injured.
Yeah. I don't see Bryn Bradley and Luke Northmore getting any change out of Icketal and Slade if they're at 12 and 13.
No, I'm going to give this one to Chiefs. I'm going to go Quins 17, Chiefs 36.
Yeah, I see this being a convincing win for Exeter as well. And I think it'll be the difference between a team that still has something to play for versus one that really doesn't. And I think Exeter will be clinical, and I think they will be physical, and I think Quins just won't have an answer to them this time around. So maybe not as high as a score for me. I reckon maybe it might be this could be like a bog standard 28-12 or something like that. It may not be a tri-fest, but we'll see. Rory, your predictions for Saracens against Gloucester?
Do you know what? This is a fixture. This would have been one of the fixtures. If you'd asked me off the back of 2 really positive performances in Gloucester, what's the fixture I wouldn't have wanted next? And Saracens away would have been right up there at the top. I can't really, in good conscience, sit here and tell you that I think we're going to go down to Saracens and win this one. As positive as the last couple of weeks has been, unfortunately, Saracens in the mood they're in,
I think losing Thomas Williams has a big impact as well. If he's not back.
Ultimately, I just have to be honest about this one and say that I think Saracens will win this one fairly comfortably. I'm going to think it's probably going to be something like 35-12.
Yeah, I was thinking 42-17. A couple of extra tries on top for me, just because it'll be a nice little spectacle. Because, it's always nice to watch a good bit of running rugby. Maybe Clory gets another 5, who knows.
Oh, thanks, David.
And then the weekend rounds off with Sale against Leicester. We've already touched on this. Comfortable Leicester win for me, this.
Yeah, I'm thinking Tigers will win this one 39-16.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. I think it's comfortable for Leicester, whatever.
I think whatever way you dice it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are our predictions. We will touch base next week and see how we've done. But that brings this chock-a-block pod, Raw, to an end. But we can't end an episode of this podcast without Rory's final thought. So, Rory, please present your final thought for the listener so I can bring this lovely episode to a close.
Henry Pollock, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
And with that, we've been Ruxmalls and Overballs. Hope you've enjoyed listening. We'll be back again next week with some more rugby chit-chat. If you've enjoyed listening, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all the other fun things. And, we've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. We hope you've enjoyed listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Ta-da.